you very much. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm Sagnik from EcoTEN Urban Comfort, and I'll just get to it because a lot to share, actually. So we are basically, as EcoTEN Urban Comfort, we are basically a startup company which is based in Prague in the Czech Republic, and we were incorporated in 2017, and we are basically a team of technical specialists working in the science of urban environment, and we are aimed at providing resiliency solution, basically to help cities who are our main clients to become more resilient to extreme heat events such as heat waves and urban heat island. So what is the main problem with that? Well, today, as you know, most of the human population is at least 50% of the human population is living in cities, and it's projected to increase in the upcoming years beyond 70%. So and also we are experiencing, and I did not say, last couple of summers have been extremely hot, and we've been experiencing a lot of heat wave events during the last 2-3 years. And this is, and what's the main problem with that? Well, I think for a starter, we start using more air conditioning, so more energy is consumed during the really hot summer days. The urban areas where most people are living are becoming extremely uncomfortable for normal citizens because they want to go out, but they can't. And this is particularly a bigger problem for the more vulnerable people, who are like the elderly people and the very young people who can have health risks because of higher temperature. Air quality becomes poorer because air quality often is associated with temperatures and in the urban areas, and there's many other problems, psychological problems that can occur because of the prevailing high heat, continuous high heat in urban areas. So this is a big problem, and cities are currently working on developing strategies on how to reduce this problem in cities. Okay, so satellite images. With Copernicus, as we know, there are a lot of services that Copernicus provides from their satellites, as well as other space agencies as well. But not all of them can be used for the urban areas because you need to have very small resolutions for using them. But there are plenty of them there for that too. Here are some examples. Basically, one is you can detect the temperatures with the thermal sensors in the satellites. Sentinel-3 has that. Even Landsat 8 and 7, which are NASA satellites, they also have that. So they are very useful for detecting the surface temperatures, which are called the at-satellite brightness temperatures in cities. So they're very useful.
Sorry, there are some complaints about your audio quality. Maybe could you try speaking a bit louder or getting closer to your laptop?
Now? Is it any better?
Not much better. I think there was no. It seems. Do you have a headphones lying next to you that you could use?
Just don't get it.
Okay. Just
give me a second.
Yeah, it's better that you get it. Okay. Sorry about that. What is a tech event if we don't have some kind of problem with listening or hearing or seeing?
Let me just
this is a lot
come
better.
back to this. Okay,
yeah.
It's better now. Okay, cool. Then I will continue. Okay, so I was just talking about the different data that you can collect for the use in urban areas. So I was talking about the satellite brightness temperatures. There are other data that can be used to assess urban areas, such as the water index, the vegetation index, water index to detect the water content in cities. And this is also very useful for getting data on urban heat island, because areas which have less water content will have a tendency to get hotter. Same goes with vegetation. Vegetation reduces extreme heat, so and we know that very well. So this can also be a very good indicator on urban heat island studies. And also we have the built-up index, which shows which areas are artificial, which areas are more natural. So these are really useful data that can be used, that are provided by Copernicus as well as other space agencies to help us analyze urban data. So I'm just going to go into it's kind of like a story. So we originally in EcoTEN Urban Comfort don't work with satellite data. We just started very recently. We work in more of a neighborhood scale to help design buildings and urban areas to modify the on a building level on how to reduce the problem of extreme heat. But we started doing some experiments and like trying to identify on a more city level how to help reduce the problem of extreme heat, because city planners are basically making a lot of policies based on a lot of other resources to reduce the problem of extreme heat, and particularly to identify which areas within the city are most vulnerable to extreme heat. So we started collecting the satellite data as well as exploring a lot of open data that's available all across the world, for in city level as well as even in the national level. I think for us the most important open data that we use is the vulnerable population. So where the vulnerable population is elderly people, people above the age of 65 and below age 15 are located. These are people which are very, very vulnerable to climate change impacts such as extreme heat. And we started kind of doing some experiments with that. And on the process, we also started talking to a lot of agencies such as the Copernicus. This is actually how we came in touch with the Copernicus program, is when we were looking for ways, technical ways to get such data and also get advices on how to provide this data to potential clients and stuff. And in that process, we also met with city officials of the city of Vienna. Vienna has been rated as one of the most livable places in the world consecutively for the past 3 years. So needless to say, they take living conditions quite seriously. So we started working with them, and we agreed to provide them with a series of satellite data, which I will show you here. This is an at-satellite brightest temperature, cumulative temperature data for the whole city for the year 2015. Then this is one for 16, 17, 18, and the latest one is 19. So we have 5 years of cumulative temperature data that we provided to the city. Okay, with this data, you can identify which are the hotspots in the city. Great. We also provided them with vegetation index as well as water index that also can be provided by Sentinel-2 of Copernicus. And this is also a very useful map for the city. And finally, I mean, all these data were already available, and a few other people may be able to provide this. But then we started constructing something what we call the Urban Heat Vulnerability Index, which is an index ranging from 0 to 1, 1 being the most vulnerable and 0 being not vulnerable at all. This is an index which shows which areas within the city are most vulnerable, being the fact that in summertime, these are the areas which are really hot. The most vulnerable people, which are aged people and very young people, are all concentrated there. And also this areas has serious lack in vegetation and water content. So this is a huge problem. So this map, this is the final version of this map. You can see all the various districts which are rather vulnerable compared to the surrounding areas. And what's very interesting is that it's not so clear from this map that the city center area of Vienna is the most vulnerable. In fact, it's the surrounding area where the people are actually living which are most vulnerable. So this was very useful for the city. Then we went one step ahead to calculate the average urban heat vulnerability index for each district. And we identified which districts were most vulnerable to extreme heat. And the city actually took this information and started planning on and redesigning these neighborhoods. And they initiated what is called the Cool Street Plus project, where they are changing the city. Today, this is actually happening in Vienna. They're changing these neighborhoods to accommodate more green spaces, to have more water fountains to provide relief to people, reduce parking spaces in those areas, and just have more place for pedestrians, etc. They're making these policies based on this map. So this was a huge success for us, because actually, honestly, we didn't quite expect this kind of an impact in the beginning. But well, it's all great. Now the city is changing thanks to this map. And once we actually went through this exercise, we decided, okay, why don't we provide this to other cities? So we came back to our home city, that is in Prague, and we told them about what happened in Vienna, and they were like, okay, that's very interesting. Maybe we could do the same thing. But we are more interested in the public transport stops, because in Prague, the public transport network is very strong, and it's it's one of the best public transport networks out there. And there are a lot of people using this transport on a regular basis, and there is a lot of waiting that's going on in some specific public transport stops. And the city is interested to make some changes on these public transport stops where a lot of people are exposed to extreme heat. So and they're like, okay, can you provide us a map like that? I'm like, yes, we can. We can use the same data from Copernicus as well as other open data sources to provide you this kind of map. And we have identified which public transport stops are most vulnerable to extreme heat based on the same index that we used in Vienna. Just a personal note, where I live in Prague, unfortunately, there is a public transport stop that is super vulnerable, and I hope that there is some kind of an action taking place over there. But it's good that the city now knows. Another case that we did, because we started exploring opportunities not just in Europe as our previous two cases, but also outside Europe, and we looked into the United States, and we found some people who are interested in this mapping. So we delivered another map for the city of Las Vegas, which was very similar to the one in Vienna. So this was, but here we did some other analysis. We are able to calculate using the urban heat vulnerability index how much percentage of the city is actually vulnerable to extreme heat and how much of it is not, etc. So this is very useful information for the city as well to make a new planning projects, etc. Another, and this is the final case that I want to show you. This is a research project that we did with the university here. We are assessing we're comparing two cities which are very close to each other and share an international border between the United States and Mexico, that is El Paso and Ciudad Juarez, and we are comparing the vulnerability indexes for both the cities with each other. So this is very interesting, because up until now we have never been able to compare one city to another. It's always been inside a city. So we did a lot of really interesting analysis for this, and I will be happy to provide you more information on each one of these projects later. Okay, so with all these experiments, with all these maps that we created, we had very interesting results, and thanks to that, the Urban Heat Vulnerability Index has been recognized or been recommended by the Joint Research Center of the European Commission as an indicator of SDG goals. So that's a really big thing for us. Finally, I just want to talk about, because this was actually called upon, what are the challenges that we experienced? Well, as mentioned earlier, awareness is a very big deal, because for us, since we're working with urban developers, Earth observation data is not typically used for making policy. They have traditional style of urban development which have been working for many years, and they're not aware of the fact that this kind of data is in fact available as open source, and this can be used in this context, and it's not that complicated to get. What is complicated is to analyze this data. So that's another challenge, because you need some very specific skills to analyze this data, but we have increasing number of players who are specializing in this field, and there are a lot of agencies which are supporting, such as ESA, even NASA. Planet is a very good example of a private sector who are providing a lot of useful data from their own satellites to encourage Earth observation. And I did not say Copernicus has a wonderful, huge data range for that can be used for a lot of purpose, and they're supporting it all the way in. And bringing Copernicus Accelerator, well, this is something that we have benefited a lot, because we all these challenges, particularly the awareness, is something that we did not know how to deal with until the support that we got from our mentor from the Copernicus Accelerator, who really guided us on how to reach, how to approach, and how to convey the use of this, the benefits of this use of this index and the satellite data that we have managed to work with to potential stakeholders, and how to successfully market it to them. And so this was a big deal because I'm a technical person, I'm an engineer, my team members are all mainly engineers, so we really don't work too much in the business sector, but this is a huge support. It's like almost a education program for us, and also other ways as well. So thank you again for all the help, the Copernicus Accelerator and the Copernicus program. And by this, I will end my presentation. And as